You want to try saying that again, hotshot?
Fat chicks are fucking disgusting.
Okay, here goes.
With that, Khonjin surged forward, his hands splayed, connecting with Gino's abdomen. A strange charge coursed through them, through Gino's clothes and into the flesh beneath. Gino toppled back onto the floor, and Khonjin went with him. Under his shirt, the fat belly seemed to push out against Khonjin's hands, expanding on contact with his energy. His pants grew tight around his legs, swelling wider, straining the seams. Fortunately, it stopped before the situation could get embarrassing.
What the fuck?
Lucky my new trick, Gino. Not to mention how impressive your thighs are right now.
The boy commented smugly.
Fuck you. Fuck you for doing this to me. Fuck you for defending a bunch of bloated, ugly cows.
Gino snarled.
You're the one to talk, asshole.
With that, Khonjin gave him a forceful squeeze. Again, that energy coursed through him, and the fat of his legs split holes down the seams as his belly and chest followed suit, pushing against the buttons on his shirt.
I'll give you another chance to take it back now, before I go any further.
This is gonna start getting indecent if you keep this up.
Gino remarked, feeling how tight his clothes were around him.
Oh yeah? Well, I think the most indecent thing here is your attitude.
He squeezed again, and Gino's belly bulged out from under his shirt, and his thighs tore holes even wider, exposing more of his pale, dimple flesh to the open. His legs were almost double the original width. As Khonjin stood to admire his handiwork, Gino followed him, a beat with a lot more difficulty. He groaned and heaved to haul his additional weight upright, using the counter to pull up. His face started turning pink with sheer exhaustion.
Whoa, Gino.
Khonjin stepped back.
Son of a bitch. I'm not gonna let a stupid kid like you push me around.
He huffed, taking a moment to brace himself against the counter, looking like he might give away under his own weight.
You actually managed to pull yourself up. I'm impressed.
Khonjin confessed.
I can't take much more of this.
He mumbled.
All right, then just admit it. Admit that big is beautiful, and all will be well again.
Gino grumbled something under his breath.
What? What was that, Gino? Because it didn't sound like what I wanted to hear.
The pizzeria's owner just glared at him.
Don't say I didn't warn you, Gino.
While he's still catching his breath and leaning on the counter, Khonjin grabbed him again. Gino, crying out as the mass of his body, forced his pants to burst apart and his shirt to tear to pieces. Stretch marks zigzagged across his form as he continued to fill out. There was barely anything left, clinging to his enormous figure. The only items intact were a pair of briefs, cutting tight between the wobbly mounds of fat, and his shoes. He fell back again, heavily, not likely to get up this time.
Gino.
Khonjin shook his head, sounding disappointed.
You never learn, do you?
The man glared up at him, defiance in those dark, beady eyes, set in an increasingly puffy face.
You're just doing that to piss me off, aren't you?
Maybe I am, but that doesn't change the game.
Khonjin sat right on top of him.
I'm giving you one more chance.
Do your worst, bitch.
Gino spat.
You asked for it.
Khonjin pressed his hand flat into Gino's exposed gut and didn't let go this time, sending a continual stream of energy through his palms.
Oh, God.
Gino could only groan as his body swelled out around him, pinning him between the counter and the back wall of the pizzeria. His thighs squeezed together as their new mass filled the space and forced its way out, Khonjin going higher and higher as he rode Gino's belly up. Dizzyingly huge, he could barely stand to watch. Khonjin could see Gino's certainty vanishing from his pudgy face, unable to choke back a helpless whimper as he ballooned outwards. His whole body pushed its way above the counter as the space filled with fat, the curve of his colossal belly growing so steep that it filled his vision. From his perch high above, Khonjin was getting closer and closer to the ceiling. He still grew, bigger and bigger, rising like dough, creaking to its fullest extent. His head was stuck in the doorway to the back room, plugged completely by fat. He felt the ceiling press him. He felt the pizzeria being smothered under the unrelenting girth, getting pumped bigger with Khonjin's power. The windows revealing the outside were blotted out. A loud gurgle strained his immensity. There was barely any space left to grow into, and he could feel it. And that electrical energy was still pushing him. He moaned, as the walls of the pizzeria itself fit snugly around his hugeness. And then he became tighter and tighter. There's so much of him pushing out at once. There's so much energy, but there's no more room, and it squeezed around him unbearably. Khonjin watched as the pale, Pillowy flesh beneath him rose like a tide. Giddy as the floor drifted far from his feet. He watched the great expansion of Gino's body pour out through the pizzeria, everything being buried under a thick blanket of fat. He felt his hair brush the ceiling, softly touching his head and persuading him to lay down on top of the cushiony mass. He felt his power flooding into the body beneath him, Gino's belly and thighs, and whatever else as much as he could manage, pushing him further and further up. He could feel warmth. The ceiling touched his back, but the great mass continued to push upwards and all around him. It squished against him, and he was held in place. Soon not even light could get through. All there was softness. It smothered him and stifled his breath, but somehow it only made him giddier. His head was getting fuzzy. It was overwhelming, engulfing him so completely. He let the pressure increase. He let Gino swell. He felt it squeezing and pressing out enough that even the ceiling at his back seemed to bulge and threaten to crack. The chef mustered, arms folded.
Don't look at me.
The huge shape of Gino mumbled from his spot, crammed in the frame between the front and the back of the restaurant.
This is Khonjin's fault.
His face was swollen and flushed. I overheard. I may have glimpsed some of what was going on, but I didn't think it would come to this. Gino remained silent, humiliated and unable to move, painfully exposed and painfully aware of it. His face seemed to burn hotter with every passing moment under Gay Spaghetti's judgmental stare. You could have just given him what he wanted, you know.
That doesn't mean he would have stopped.
Well, maybe. You have a point. But still, it doesn't give him any reason to.
At least I ain't getting any bigger.
Gino pointed out.
I don't think I can. I'm jammed between the walls.
The chef tilted his head, resting his chin on his fist. Are you okay? It's not hurting you. And where is Khonjin now?
It's hurting my dignity, but apart from that, I'm just peachy. I guess Khonjin's probably somewhere in there, being smushed into the ceiling.
Gino huffed.
Serves him right for doing this to me.
Maybe that's why it stopped. He lost control of his powers and got trapped.
I don't think so.
Shit! Alarm shot through Gino's face. Before Gay could ask, he noticed the great wall blocking the way start to swell outwards again. He watched the frame creak and plaster around it crackle. The chef staggered back, murmuring a quiet "Mamma mia" to himself.
I was wrong.
Gino grunted and winced. Gay could hear the room beyond, giving way and breaking like the wall was starting to hear.
This whole place is gonna go down.
He strained. The chef was stunned, frozen in place while his boss turned, desperate and pleading.
Please, I'm sorry.
He choked. It was like someone had flipped a switch. A huge puff of smoke exploded out as Khonjin's energy burned away, dispersing into nothing. The entirety of Gino snapped back into his original form, and he was in midair. He hit the ground, and the landing knocked some out of the air out of him. The rest of the air was knocked out when Khonjin himself fell smack top on Gino. A few bits and pieces of the ceiling came down with them. Khonjin moaned, and Gino growled, rolling off him to stand up. He checked over himself, making sure he was really back to normal. Although his clothes were noticeably still in tatters on the floor, much to his dismay. The walls and windows had been cracked in such a way it almost looked like the building itself had stretch marks. The coffee maker on the counter had been knocked to the floor and crushed beyond all repair. Khonjin stumbled to his feet beside him, while Gay Spaghetti, after making sure nothing else was going to fall down, came scrambling after the two. Is everything okay now? He fussed.
Yeah.
Khonjin replied dreamily, his hair a fluffy red mess and his eyes a little unfocused, like he was just getting out of bed.
Oh yeah, aside from everything being completely fucked up and broken. Yeah.
Gino gripped.
And if you happen to have any spare clothes, that'd be great.
I don't think so, but you could use one of my aprons, at least for the moment. I'll go get you one. Gay Spaghetti scurried back into the kitchen while Gino sighed. An odd quiet descended upon them for the time he was gone, until quiet Khonjin hummed sleepily.
That was kind of fun. We should do it again sometime,
he murmured. Gino snapped around, so bewildered that it took him a few seconds to even speak.
What?